The year was 9 AD. Rome stood at the height of its power, its legions feared across the known world, its borders stretching ever outward. Yet, beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, one that would shake the empire to its very core. A dark cloud settled over Rome, both literally and figuratively, as ominous news began to spread. 3 entire legions, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, marched confidently into the vast Teutoburg Forest under the command of Publius Quinctilius Varus. They would never return. Varus, believing in the loyalty of the local Germanic tribes, placed his trust in them. He was tragically mistaken. The silence that followed their disappearance was chilling. A whole army swallowed by the unknown, leaving behind only scattered armor and unanswered questions. This was more than a military defeat. It shattered Rome's sense of invincibility, exposing a vulnerability that had long been denied. The loss sent shockwaves through the capital. Panic and disbelief gripped the people as the news spread like wildfire. Rome mourned not just its dead, but its certainty, its faith in the unbreakable strength of its legions and the destiny of its empire. Emperor Augustus, devastated and inconsolable, wandered his palace in despair, crying out, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions!" His grief echoed through the marble halls. The disaster cut deep, threatening the very foundation of the Pax Romana Augustus had so carefully built and maintained. All plans to expand the empire to the Elbe River were abandoned overnight, as fear replaced ambition. The Rhine, once seen as a temporary boundary, was transformed into a permanent, heavily fortified frontier, a line that Rome dared not cross again. Germania became a land of dread and mystery in the Roman imagination, a place where legions vanished and nightmares took root. The name Varus became a curse, whispered in fear and anger, a symbol of failure, betrayal, and the dangers of arrogance. The psychological wound was as deep as the military one. The trauma haunted soldiers and citizens alike, casting a long shadow over the empire. Rome's dream of conquering Germania died in that forest, lost among the mist and trees, never to be revived. The empire, for the first time in a generation, felt vulnerable, its future uncertain, its people anxious and afraid. The ghost of Varus and his lost legions would haunt Rome for years to come, a constant reminder of the price of overconfidence. The stage was set for a desperate quest for revenge, as Rome vowed never to forget the shadow that had fallen over its glory. The loss of 3 legions was catastrophic, 10% of Rome's army gone in a single blow. But the true humiliation was the loss of the legionary eagles, the sacred standards. Each eagle embodied the legion's spirit and Rome's connection to the gods. To lose one was disgrace. To lose 3 was unthinkable. Their capture by Germanic tribes was seen as a religious and national calamity. The eagles became trophies for Arminius, proof that Rome could be defeated. Varus's suicide sealed the disaster's shame. The story was not of a hard-fought loss, but of betrayal and collapse. The combination of annihilated legions, lost eagles, and Varus's death created a national trauma. Rome's honor, its dignitas, was shattered. Restoring that honor was now an absolute necessity. Someone had to march back into those forests. Someone had to punish the tribes. And above all, someone had to bring the eagles home. The mission was clear: vengeance and redemption. Rome's pride demanded nothing less. Out of disaster, a new hero emerged, Germanicus. Young, charismatic, and of legendary lineage, he was the nephew and adopted son of Emperor Tiberius. Germanicus was more than his family name. He was the embodiment of Roman hope. Popular with both soldiers and citizens, he stood in stark contrast to the dour Tiberius. His mission was not conquest, but to restore Rome's honor and avenge Varus. Germanicus was to march into Germania, punish the tribes, and erase the shame of defeat. The task was personal and political. Rome's image of invincibility depended on him. He had to prove the Teutoburg disaster was a fluke, not a sign of weakness. Germanicus embraced his destiny, determined to succeed where others had failed. He would face Arminius, the architect of Rome's humiliation, on his own ground. The fate of Roman prestige rested on Germanicus's shoulders. The empire watched, desperate for redemption. The campaign for honor was about to begin. Before Germanicus could even think about fighting the Germanic tribes, he was confronted by a crisis much closer to home. A mutiny brewing within his own ranks, threatening to tear the army apart before a single battle was fought. In 14 AD, the mighty Augustus, Rome's first emperor, died. The empire mourned, and Tiberius, his reluctant successor, ascended to the throne, inheriting not just power, but also unrest. The legions stationed along the Rhine, far from Rome, erupted in open revolt, their discipline shattered. The soldiers, frustrated by years of harsh service, poor pay, and broken promises, refused to obey their commanders. Their anger boiled over, and they threatened to plunge the empire into civil war. Germanicus, young and ambitious, found his first true test not on the battlefield, but in the chaos of his own camp. He stood before the furious legionaries, appealing to their sense of honor and reminding them of their sacred oaths to Rome and to each other. But the resentment ran deep, and his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. In their desperation, the mutineers even tried to proclaim Germanicus emperor, dragging him into a dangerous game of power that could have cost him his life. In a bold and emotional gesture, Germanicus brought his wife, Agrippina, and their young son, Gaius, later known as Caligula, into the camp, exposing them to the soldiers' rage. Then he sent them away, fearing for their safety. The sight of their general's family fleeing in fear struck the soldiers with shame. Their anger gave way to guilt, and they began to question their actions. Loyalty slowly returned. The legionaries, realizing the gravity of their rebellion, turned on the ringleaders and punished them themselves, restoring discipline. Germanicus had restored order, not through violence, but by understanding his men's grievances and appealing to their better nature. He had shown true leadership in a moment of crisis. Now the legions were united and fiercely loyal, their energy and anger redirected toward a common enemy. The mutiny was over. With discipline restored, the campaign to reclaim Rome's honor and avenge past defeats could finally begin. Germanicus had proven himself a masterful leader, earning the respect and devotion of his men. The army's focus shifted outward, their determination hardened. They were ready for vengeance, ready to face the enemy beyond the frontier. The Rhine frontier, once divided by mutiny, now stood united under Germanicus's command, stronger than ever. With order restored, Rome's retribution was about to be unleashed upon the tribes beyond the Rhine. With his legions fiercely loyal and eager for vengeance, Germanicus launched a series of brutal campaigns deep into the wild heart of Germania, determined to restore Rome's honor after the devastating defeat at Teutoburg. His goal was not to conquer and hold territory, but to punish, devastate, and send a message of Roman might to all who opposed them. In late 14 AD, Germanicus struck swiftly and without warning, surprising the Marsi tribe. Roman soldiers burned villages, destroyed crops, and showed no mercy to their enemies, leaving devastation in their wake. The message was unmistakable. Roman vengeance would be swift, merciless, and unforgettable. In 15 AD, Germanicus escalated his efforts, leading a massive invasion force into the heart of enemy territory, determined to reach the infamous site of the Teutoburg disaster and confront the ghosts of Rome's past. There, among the trees, his soldiers discovered the scattered bones and rusted weapons of Varus's lost legions, a haunting, sobering reminder of Rome's greatest humiliation. With heavy hearts, they buried the dead, performing rites to honor their fallen comrades and renewing their resolve to avenge them. But the Germans, led by the cunning Arminius, were not idle. They struck back fiercely, ambushing the Romans at the treacherous Battle of the Long Bridges, where chaos reigned in the marshy darkness. Unlike Varus, Germanicus kept his composure, adapted quickly, rallied his men, and managed a skillful escape from disaster, proving his worth as a commander. In 16 AD, refusing to be deterred, Germanicus changed tactics. He bypassed the deadly forests by sea, landing his forces for a decisive confrontation at the Battle of Edistaviso. On the open plain, the Romans unleashed their discipline and power, routing Arminius's forces. The Germanic leader barely escaped with his life, his army shattered. Germanicus had finally met his nemesis in open battle, and emerged victorious, earning the respect and admiration of his men. The legions proved their supremacy, demonstrating that Roman discipline and courage could overcome even the fiercest resistance. With each hard-fought victory, Rome's honor was being restored, one battle at a time, and the shadow of Teutoburg began to lift. The psychological wound of Teutoburg, though deep, was beginning to heal as the soldiers reflected on their journey and sacrifices. Germanicus's campaigns were undeniably brutal, marked by relentless attacks and harsh reprisals, but they were also effective in breaking the enemy's spirit. The tide had finally turned in Rome's favor, and the legions marched forward with renewed confidence, their standards held high in triumph. Beyond battle, Germanicus's true quest was to recover the lost legionary eagles. These sacred standards were symbols of Rome's soul. Their recovery was as important as any victory. In 15 AD, the first eagle was found after defeating the Bructeri tribe, a cause for celebration in Rome. The legion's morale soared. The mission felt possible. In 16 AD, after Edistaviso, a second eagle was seized from the Marsi. Germanicus's reputation soared. He was reclaiming Rome's honor. The third eagle would not be recovered until decades later, but Germanicus's campaigns made it possible. By breaking the Germanic tribes' unity, he paved the way for its eventual return. 2 eagles reclaimed, Rome's pride was nearly restored. The gods of war were coming home. Germanicus had nearly completed his sacred quest. 3 men shaped this story: Germanicus, Arminius, and Tiberius. Germanicus was the hero, bold, popular, and determined to restore honor. Arminius, once a Roman ally, became Rome's deadliest foe, using Roman tactics against them. He was a freedom fighter to his people, a traitor to Rome. Tiberius, the emperor, was cautious and pragmatic, wary of Germanicus's growing fame. While Germanicus sought total victory, Tiberius preferred a secure, defensible border. Their tension defined the campaign's limits. In the end, Tiberius's caution prevailed. Rome would not conquer Germania. The clash between ambition and pragmatism shaped the empire's future. Despite victories and recovered eagles, Germania was not conquered. In 16 AD, Tiberius recalled Germanicus, granting him a triumph in Rome. The parade was a spectacle: captured chieftains, recovered standards, and public celebration. But behind the glory, Rome was pulling back. Tiberius decided the cost of conquest was too high. The Rhine became the permanent frontier. Rome would fortify, not expand. Germanicus had restored honor, but not achieved conquest. The campaign stabilized the border, but admitted Germania was unconquerable. The dream of expansion ended. A new era of defense began. The decision to hold the Rhine shaped Europe's future. West of the river, Roman culture flourished. East, Germanic tribes remained independent. Germanicus' story ended in tragedy. He died young, his legend cemented. His campaigns were about prestige, not territory. Rome's elite valued honor as much as conquest. The quest for vengeance stabilized the border but ended expansion. Rome learned its limits in the forests of Germania. Germanicus restored pride, but the price was the end of a dream. The Rhine became a permanent boundary between Rome and the barbarians, and between 2 destinies. In the end, Rome's honor was satisfied, but Germania remained free.